Hello and welcome to Credit Versio's Q&A Wednesday live for November 17th. I'm your host, David Mahalik, and every week at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, we come together live on Facebook and on YouTube to talk about credit. And as a credit consumer expert with nearly a decade of experience, I've conducted well over 10,000 one-on-one credit coaching sessions, and I'm looking forward to helping you understand and improve your credit. Now, during our time today, I'm happy to answer any questions you've got about credit reports, scores, the dispute process, which I imagine most of you are going through right now, and of course, Credit Versio. In fact, we've had so many new people joining us on the last couple of lives that I'm going to do something a little bit different today. I'm going to spend some time talking about what Credit Versio does and how it gives anyone who uses it an incredible advantage over either going it alone with your repair or hiring a credit repair company. And that's because, as of March 5th, 2020, for the first time in history, software became far more effective than people in the credit repair space. And that, of course, was the release date of Credit Versio and the introduction to the first AI, the first software ever built specifically to guide its users through the process to read credit reports, find errors, build dispute strategies, and then guide everybody step by step through the process, through the entire credit repair process. And I'm very happy to say, as of today, I looked it up this morning, over 130,000 people have created a Credit Versio account to take control and fix their own credit, which is incredible news. It's very exciting, and that actually is probably on par with some of the biggest credit repair companies in the country, and it validates what all of us here at Credit Versio believed for a long time, and that is that people really want to do this on their own. They don't want to pay somebody to do it for them and kind of be left in the dark, not really knowing what's going on apart from they're sending some letters out and fingers crossed something happens. So that is a closing of a chapter that we've had open since since really 1970, the creation of the Fair Credit Reporting Act, the FCRA. And now, 51, almost 50, coming up on 52 years later, we now have software that can do the process almost autonomously. And it is kind of funny if you think about it. I mean, software runs so much of what we do in our life, and software really does do a lot of things better than we do. We don't have the mind to process tremendous amounts of data, whereas software does, and it's everywhere in our life. And it took this long to get to a place where software now has the ability to do a very, very critical function for us. So I'm very excited today to maybe go into a little bit more detail about Credit Versio, how it works, and if you have any questions during the presentation, feel free to ask them. And I see we've got some of our loyal people on already. Arian, thank you so much for being here. I love the fact that you're here every week and you always ask great questions. That's incredible. So I want to get started with a little walkthrough. And what I thought I would do is first let's just set the stage for how credit repair works. And there's even though everybody here that's watching, I think, has a pretty good idea of what credit repair is, you dispute some stuff, fingers crossed they don't respond, or if you see mistakes on a credit report, you can call them out, write a letter, or dispute online. I don't think it's a completely alien concept for people when we talk about the credit repair process. But still, because there's so much misinformation that's out there, and being in this business for coming up on 10 years now, and dealing with thousands and thousands of people, and I say dealing with, I mean that in a very good way, but you get to see everything that's out there. Like, because I'm in the credit repair space, because I'm at Credit Versio, and because even long before Credit Versio, I've been in this space. If I go through my my Facebook or my Instagram, all I see is credit repair stuff, because they know that's the stuff that I look at. So it's frightening what is out there as far as really bad information. So what I want to do is let's just start out with going over what credit repair is. And so let's start off with a slideshow that I made for you. And then I'll go back and forth between the slideshow and answering your questions. So if you want to go ask something that's a little off topic, I'm happy to answer it for you. Might not get to it at that very second, but I will certainly answer it. Okay, here we go. So The first thing is, how does Credit Versio work? What is it really doing? Yes, it's software, but what's taking place? Well, in order to set the stage for it and to really explain the value of what Credit Versio does, we gotta, like I said, we gotta talk about, how does credit repair work? So the first thing is, what really got this kicked off was in 1970 was the passing of what's called the FCRA, the Fair Credit Reporting Act, and to distill it down, at least the parts that matter to you and me, is it's the ability to remove accounts that are, and this is the language right out of the FCRA, that are erroneous, outdated, incomplete, and unverifiable. So essentially what's happening here is the law is stating that we have the right to have correct information on our credit report. Okay, it's not unreasonable, but think about it. Credit bureaus have been around in one form or another since the late 1800s. So we spend a tremendous amount of time with these entities that have our information, and God knows if it's correct. So that was really I would say the watershed moment where things really changed was in 1970, where this all opened up, and now we have the right to demand that the information on our credit report be completely accurate. So you have the legal right to dispute any account. Now the great thing is you don't have to prove that it's wrong. The burden of proof, the burden of performance, the burden of verification is on two parties. The data furnisher, and this is anybody who sends information to your credit report. So it can be all your trade lines, credit card company, auto lender, bank, credit union, collection companies, anybody who's reporting information to the credit bureaus that's going to end up on your credit report has to comply with a pretty strict standard of accuracy. And you can dispute anything that you want. As I said, the data furnisher, the bureaus have the option to fix or remove accounts. Actually, I didn't get to that part yet. So this is a really, really important part. Data furnishers, so anybody reporting information to your credit report, and the bureaus have the option to fix or remove accounts that you dispute. Okay, so why am I mentioning this? There is this pervasive belief that, hey, I disputed an account. Why didn't it come off? I disputed it, or they didn't respond in 30 days. How come it's still there? Well, what happens a lot of the time, and this is just from looking at thousands and thousands of credit reports for almost 10 years, really what happens a lot of the time is that the creditor, the data furnisher, does correct the information. If there's some wrong dates, if there's a wrong payment information, they have the right to come correct, for lack of a better phrase. They have the ability to respond to your dispute by saying, oh yeah, look at, David over here wrote a dispute saying that such and such is incorrect, and we're looking at it, and hey, yeah, you know what, he's right, let's fix it. Doesn't mean it's going to get deleted. It means it might just get updated. Okay, let's go on to the next part, and this is a really important part right here. All success in credit repair. Now, how do we define success? Well, if we're trying to remove things from our credit report, success is based on finding errors and discrepancies. Okay, this is a really, really important part. Okay, dispute letters, there's no such thing as like trick dispute letters or special letters that will that will cause a deletion. What causes a deletion is an error, a discrepancy of some kind, also an error, or the inability to verify the information. Okay, that is already built into that account. It's just all about asking the right question. And the right question is really not that hard. It's just it's sending a dispute, asking them to do an investigation. That's the language of the law. They have to perform what's called, and I'll do the air quotes, a reasonable investigation. And sometimes, if the information is just not verifiable, the account gets deleted. But everything, it all still comes back to success is based on finding errors and discrepancies. It doesn't matter if you're doing your own credit repair, you hire somebody, you're using Credit Versio, it all comes down to that. Okay. So the errors that can't be fixed or the inability to verify account info is the cause of all deletions, just as I said. So it's really important to keep that frame when we're going into the next part, which is, well, how does Credit Versio work? So Credit Versio is this great software. It guides you through the process, but what's really going on in the background? Is it just sending out a bunch of templates? Because anybody can do that. In fact, you could send out templates and have about the same success that you would if you hired most credit repair companies. Nothing wrong with that. In fact, a lot of the disputes that get sent to bureaus are templates that are downloaded from the FTC website and the CFPB website. Like you'll hear in the blogosphere, you'll hear people saying, "Well, don't send template letters because they can ignore them." No, they can't. Says who? That's not true at all. And you're gonna hear me say this maybe once or twice during this presentation. One of the reasons why we at Credit Versio, and also from the company that I was at before Credit Versio, before I really had an active role here, we understand what goes on behind the scenes in the credit bureaus. And the reason for that is we have friends and people who are partnered with us that work there. One of the guys that you've seen me have on every other week, John Olsheimer, aside from working at FICO, worked at Equifax for years, worked in dispute resolution. So we have a very clear understanding of what goes on behind the scenes there. Another gentleman named Steve Rieger, who I've interviewed on the live before, was at TransUnion for 25 years. And for a good chunk of that, he used to run the entire dispute division. That's a guy you want to talk to. Both those guys are people you want to talk to if you want to have an understanding of what goes on behind the scenes. Okay, so let's go on to how does Credit Versio work? Okay, and by the way, all of this is happening at the same time, within seconds, as far as the initial part here. So what's happening is when you link a compatible credit report to Credit Versio, it's getting a digital 3-bureau credit report. Okay, it's not getting, Credit Versio doesn't get a PDF, it doesn't get HTML, it gets a completely different format. Now this is a custom partnership that we have with compatible 3-bureau credit report providers. It took weeks, in some cases months, to build these connections. So Credit Versio is getting a massive amount of data that is delivered into its software so it can read your report. And by the way, Credit Versio sees more than we do on a credit report. There's a lot of stuff on our credit report that's redacted. We see what's called a consumer disclosure. It's like a snapshot of the information on our credit report. Credit Versio gets a little bit more than that, and that actually gives it quite a bit of an edge, apart from the fact that it already has a built-in edge being software, being able to process a tremendous amount of information. But now that you add on top of it that it sees more. So the digital 3-bureau credit report, import and analysis, the AI scans for 20 different types of errors. 20. That is a huge deal. Let me explain something real quick. When I was the VP of a very large, very successful credit repair company, we had manual processing. Pretty much all credit repair companies, I can think of maybe 2 off the top of my head that have limited manual processing. But apart from that, everybody has manual processing. Lexington Law, CreditRepair.com, Ovation, Sky Blue, I mean, you name it. They have people sitting at a computer looking at credit reports side by side and scrolling through them and trying to figure out if there's differences, if there's violations, if there's differences between an account on all 3 bureaus. Well, what if your credit report's 25 pages long like mine, or larger? The chances of catching 5, 6 errors is pretty remote. The idea of finding 20 it's not possible. But because Credit Versio software, because it's engineered to do that, it has that ability. Okay, next, when it imports your credit report, the first thing it's going to do, it's going to separate your positive from your negative, your positive accounts from your negative accounts. On your home page in Credit Versio, you're watching this, if you got a Credit Versio account, I'm not showing you anything that you haven't already seen or don't already know, but here's your credit items page. If you look at the, right here, at the red, looks like a circle, kind of an oblong circle, I suppose, you can see that I've outlined the negative accounts. Under TransUnion, there's 6 negative accounts, Experian 8, and Equifax 9. So it knows what makes a negative account. Scroll up, and what's going to happen is you're going to be under your dispute plan. The dispute plan, if you look under the scores, it's maybe hard to see depending on the size of your screen, but it will tell you what needs to be done and when. Okay, the dispute process is dictated by law, and I'm sure you know this. Bureaus have 30 days to respond. They can take up to 45 days if they want to. It doesn't happen very often because their dispute processing is pretty fast these days, but 10, 15 years ago it wasn't. And this dispute plan is going to keep you on track. And to get everything started, you click that button right there. Again, I've used the same, let me make sure I can do this right. the same red circle, red oblong circle. You see the button that says create dispute letter. Once you create dispute letter, it's going to take you, in this case, over to TransUnion. We're going to start with TransUnion, then you go Experian Equifax. I want you to notice the red circle around the area that says suggested. Okay, hopefully you can see that. It's just right, whoop, on the way here, right. It's vertically stacked. So what's happening there is Credit Versio has read every single one of these accounts. It understands what every single account is. And it's going to provide a suggested dispute reason based on over 2 million disputes. So it can tell the difference between a collection, a charge-off, a bankruptcy, a student loan that's in default. And it understands how you approach them differently. And it's looking for discrepancies on that account across all three bureaus and just anything else that stands out that's irregular. And what it's doing, it's going into its big database of millions of past disputes and saying, okay, yeah, we know what this kind of an account is. We have a pretty good idea based on past successes of what is going to cause a deletion if there is something wrong with it. Now, let me qualify that statement a little bit. The number one dispute reason is always going to be a custom reason. Now, what do I mean by that? Not always. Let me qualify that. If you know something about an account on your credit report that you're disputing, okay, case in point, my girlfriend got some late payments on her Capital One card about 3 months ago. Wasn't late. Okay, had proof she wasn't late, and called them and said, "Hey, what's going on?" They went over it together, and Cap One's like, "Yeah, no, you're right. This was a mistake." So that was an easy dispute. But because I'm in the business, I did a custom dispute letter and essentially said, "Hey, this isn't late. Here's the proof. Here's a letter from Cap One saying that it's not late." That's a custom reason. Now, Credit Versio doesn't know that there's a backstory. So this is a backstory on the account. Now, short of that, what Credit Versio is going to do is look for errors. And again, what did I say in the beginning of the video? Errors are the reason why things get deleted. Errors that can't be corrected and unverifiable information. Okay? All right, so let's go back to this. This is, I think, one of the most magnificent parts of Credit Versio, that it's done the work. It's done the work of a credit repair pro that might have spent maybe an hour looking at this credit report, just kind of scratching their head, going through it line by line, trying to figure out if they can find something to dispute. Done like that. Credit Versio did it in a second. Next, Credit Versio can find, like I said, 20 errors. Here's just 2 of them. I'm not sure if I can move my head, my big head here. Okay, yes. So let's look at the top one. These are just 2 that I pulled out because I thought they were really, really cool. Now you'll see the suggested reason. We're looking at the top one. It says duplicate credit error. It's in blue. So what this is doing is it's Credit Versio saying, hey, we found the duplicate. This is a charge-off account. Now it says, and I'll read it to you. This account is being reported on my credit report multiple times with the same creditor and open date. We figure that out because it knows how to read the fields on credit reports. Please remove this error and any negative information in this account immediately. Okay, let's look at the bottom one. Let me move my head here. Now this is a resold collection. And by the way, I'm reading the dispute, the language of the dispute. Now, what you don't see is that Credit Versio includes the account number, the dates. It includes everything in the dispute letter itself. So when the credit bureaus get it, it's got all the facts about both accounts in this example where I'm talking to you about a duplicate. So all the information the bureau needs is right there. So this is a collection that was once deleted, then showed back up again a month later. It was not because it was re-added, but because it was bought by another credit repair company. This doesn't happen very often, so don't worry about that. But the fact that Credit Versio caught it, because it's looking at this month's credit report and last month's credit report, it sees the collection, the new collection, and it goes back to the previous credit report and goes, oh, yeah, we recognize that collection. It was deleted last month. And the language in here, it says this debt was previously being reported by Credit Collection. This is what they state on the credit report, their name anyway. I disputed this debt to the credit bureaus and the account was deleted because the information was inaccurate. A new debt collector, new collection company, is now reporting this very same debt, but the disputed information has still never been verified. Okay, this is a very specific language in the law for the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. So Credit Versio knows how to formulate these kind of disputes. Please delete this collection account immediately. Okay. So let's go to the next one. Now, once you select the accounts you want to dispute, you can take the suggested reason or not, write your own custom reason. A lot of people just use the suggested reason because it tends to be really, really good. Credit Versio writes your dispute letter in the correct format and emails it to you. Okay, this is something I really want to emphasize. I see we got some questions on here. I'm going to get to these in just a second, so thank you for your patience. And we're coming down to the end of this outline. But this is for you and for anybody who watches this on the replay, which typically several hundred, maybe even 1,000 people will watch it on the replay. Okay, so the important part is in the correct format. Well, what does that mean? The correct format, again, going back to what I said earlier about us having friends and partners, people that we are actively partnered with that worked in the credit bureaus for years, decades. So we know exactly what goes on. We know the format that they like because they've told us. So here's a couple of rules. Now let me show you this dispute letter. It's hard, Brandon, I get it. It's really hard to read. I don't think I can zoom it in. But I want to show you something. Let me try to zoom this in. No, I can't zoom it in. Okay. Well, what I wanted to show you, and if you're using Credit Versio, you've already seen this. The disputes are really short. It's just, hey, I want to dispute these accounts on the credit report dated such and such date, and here are the accounts. Well, that throws people a little bit. I can't tell you how many people I've had posts like, hey, you're not citing the laws. Hey, you're not threatening to sue. You're right. That's a bad idea. You don't do that. So somewhere along the way in the credit repair blogosphere where you have talking heads of people who really have no credentials, no experience, they don't run credit repair companies, they have great YouTube channels, will sell templates. I mean, it's probably one of the reasons why they do what they do. They're selling templates, which are a complete waste of money. And you'll see that they'll say, oh, well, you got to cite these laws out of the Fair Credit Reporting Act. As if the bureaus don't know them. They already know what the laws are. Everything that they do, the whole formulaic process of receiving, of intaking disputes and processing disputes is all dictated by law anyway. They don't need anybody to quote the laws to them. They already know them. So don't waste the time, don't waste the space. Be polite, be kind, be short, be to the point. That's what they like. We know that's what they like because they've told us that's what they like. So that's why the dispute letters, generally speaking, are really, really effective. Okay, now coming down to the end of this. The next part is Credit Versio guides you through a multi-dispute strategy. Okay, this is really important to understand. I know I keep saying that, but all this is important, especially if you're trying to fix your credit and you want to get some traction. One of the reasons why, like if you're using Credit Versio and your first letter, your first dispute, not a lot came back, not a lot of action, it just depends. If you have a lot of low-hanging fruit, sometimes it comes off. But one of the reasons why we in the credit repair industry say that the credit repair process really starts at round 2 at your second letter is because a lot of data furnishers, aka creditors, know that if you are disputing yourself, okay, they can tell when a dispute letter comes from a credit repair company or whether you sent it yourself. It's very simple. And if they see that it's coming from an individual, they know, and I've had people who work within the bureaus tell me this, they know that roughly about 80% of the time, if it's, let's say I'm a total amateur, I sent a dispute letter, this, maybe I downloaded a template, maybe I had a friend help me, who knows, and the bureaus come back and say, oh no, it's all reporting accurately. Well, they know over 80% of the time I'm just going to go, oh well, I gave it a shot, I tried, and I'm gone. Okay, I'm not going to do anything again. Well, that's not how it works. What Credit Versio does, which is the same thing a quality, like a white glove credit repair company is going to do, we're going to create a multi-letter dispute process. So it's not all done with the first dispute. You got to follow up with a second dispute. Sometimes just saying, hey, I sent a dispute out. You guys didn't respond to it. You're supposed to legally. Can you explain why I didn't get any kind of a result or any kind of explanation? Now they're like, oh boy, this person's not going away. Okay, now the dispute process really begins. So when Credit Versio gets that second letter, it scans, or second credit report, excuse me, it scans everything. It looks for changes because it's analyzing the whole credit report. It looks for changes. Anything that changed between that first credit report and the second. Anything that was deleted or repaired, anything that was changed, any dates that were updated, anything that was re-aged or added or wrong, it happens all the time. Sometimes when you dispute information, things get a little goofy. And not that it's going to hurt anything, but it might create an opportunity for a more powerful dispute. So Credit Versio is now comparing the first and the second credit report together. And it's going, okay, what changed? And now, based on that, let's escalate to a second dispute. That's called round 2. And then a third, and then a fourth, and then maybe you might need a fifth. Okay, that's the difference that makes the difference, is a multi-dispute process. Okay, let's wrap this up. So let me summarize it. I'm going to get to your questions. Okay, so what is Credit Versio really doing behind the scenes? Okay, if I had to summarize it, well, first of all, it's scanning millions of lines of code looking for error. Okay, looking for errors. This is something that you and I can't do. As a credit expert, as somebody who spent the last almost 10 years scanning credit reports, I can't compete with Credit Versio. There's no way. I don't see as much information as it sees. And I can't remember something that happened on page 1 of a credit report where there might be an error on that account or a duplicate that's on page 20. It's almost impossible to do. And it's crazy that it took this long for somebody to build software that can do this. Second, Credit Versio uses matching logic to rank dispute reasons. So it's not a one-size-fits-all. Every so often, Credit Versio goes through and the team here scans and looks at the disputes, the results, and goes, oh, look at these disputes for this kind of an account with this kind of a problem. We need to rearrange them. We need to put the more successful one on top. And that happens. So it's a learning system. The dispute plan keeps you on track with updates. I mentioned this a second ago. Everything is dictated by federal law. So when Credit Versio imports your credit report, it's going to say, hey, you've got X amount of days to mail your disputes because your new credit report is coming in on this date. And it gives you a countdown timer right at the very top. Keeps you on track. As long as you follow the instructions, and please do that, it's really easy to follow along. And lastly, the highest probability of a repair or deletion when not using a custom reason. So what I'm saying here is that Credit Versio finds at least one error on 93% of credit reports. Now, I'm not saying these are errors that all of them cause a 100-point drop. Some of them do, like that duplicate that I just showed you. That would be pretty significant. I mean, apart from the fact if you had 20 other charge-offs, which we don't see very often. But derogatory information for a lot of people is right there. It's right there in front of you, but people don't see it because it's so hard to pick up on some of these little nuances on an account between bureaus. Okay, so that's my overview of Credit Versio. I hope you've got a better understanding of what it does. And the short is the playing field has now been leveled. Okay, it's fair now. You don't need to hire a credit repair company. You don't need to pay somebody to do this for you. We can say this with absolute confidence. This is the first time where software is actually going to do a better job. Okay, let me get to these questions. All right, let's see. Al-Mustafa, hey, great to see you again. Hope you're still on. I know I talked for a while there, but I really wanted to get that out there. Joseph, thanks for your time again today. I used the software for 4 rounds of disputes and had great results and deletions. Awesome. Loved hearing it. Then I canceled Smart Credit for 4 months and I wanted to start back up again. Does Credit Versio remember where I left off in the dispute process? If I sign back up with Smart Credit, let me put that back up. Logged in and Smart Credit shows all my history still, or would I be starting a brand new one again? Yeah, you know what, Joseph? Here's what I would do. There's a couple of strategies you can use when you finished your repair process. One of the things that I think you should do is give it a little bit of time. Wait 2, 3. I used to tell people wait 3 to 6 months, because if you've gone through 4 rounds, again, just like I said here, what causes deletions are errors, discrepancies, and the ability to verify. Now, if you've gone through 4 rounds, the data furnishers have pretty much proven that for whatever's left, I know you got some stuff deleted. That's awesome. Congratulations. I'm happy for you. But for the things that remained, they're probably legit. I mean, unless you see something on your credit report that's clearly not kosher, then that's when you talk to an attorney. And if you need if you need somebody, we know a couple of people. But if everything on there is like, yeah, you know what, this is my credit report, I deleted this stuff, I did it, it is what it is, it's there, it's real, then you might be done for now. So you've got a couple of options really. Like I said, I might have said a second ago, you've really got three options. You can wait, give it about 3 to 6 months. Maybe some of this information might get archived. Maybe now this doesn't happen with collection companies, but maybe the original data furnisher will archive the data, and then 3 to 6 months later, when you come in to do a dispute, they have an automatic kickback for a deletion because they don't have it anymore. Okay, option number one. Option number two, start settling some debt. I don't know if you owe money or if you have collections, but let me make the assumption that maybe you do, or anybody watching this does. If you've disputed it, it's there. Hey, listen, nothing wrong with settling some debt. I'm not saying pay full price, negotiate. People are, collection companies, original creditors sometimes will take 10, 20, 25 cents on the dollar. See if you can settle it. Ending that relationship with a debt collector is always a good thing. Okay, that's option two. Option three is, the least attractive of all of them, but the real one, or the one that's just going to happen automatically anyway. Wait 7 years. Wait for the stuff to age off. And that's not exciting, but keep in mind that the more time you put between yourself and the date of these derogatory accounts, the better you are. You're going to heal over time. In fact, apart from maybe, say, bankruptcy, after about 24 months or so, you've largely recovered from a lot of the heavy hit. I mean, if you got collections and charge-offs and past late payments, it's very, very feasible to have a pretty decent credit score 24 to 36 months later, provided you keep your nose clean. You're not doing any risky stuff. Like I did a little video for somebody the other day because they couldn't figure out why their score was dropping, even though they had a magnificent repair. The majority of the information on her TransUnion credit report came off. I think one negative account left. Half of it on Experian and Equifax came off. And this is in 2 months or maybe 3 months, but her score's going down. Well, the reason for it was she was doing high-risk stuff. Like she had, I think, 16, 17 accounts with balances, revolving accounts. That's not good. Part of that 30% of your score is credit utilization and how many accounts with balances you have. So not only did she have a lot of accounts, but she had high balances, and she had a bankruptcy from years ago. So she's in a high-risk scorecard situation, which means that, yeah, okay, great, you're getting some old stuff deleted, but you're doing stuff that's telling VantageScore and FICO that you're high risk. So better decisions are going to help you recover a lot faster. Okay, Prince Charles, hey, good to see you again. It's been a little while. Arian, okay with your question, what are your thoughts on some credit repair channels suggesting people buy old plus high limit authorized user trade lines to artificially inflate their scores? One, are there any anti-abuse algorithms in place by FICO to recognize this behavior? No, there's not. Good. This is a great question, by the way. Do lenders take AU trade lines into account when making decisions? Yes, they do. Okay, Arian, love the question. The best ethical cheat, if you want to call it a cheat, let's not call it a cheat. The ethical angle to increase your credit score is authorized user. It's really kind of a goofy thing too. Like I'm going to get credit. Like if I have a family member, if I've got some challenge credit, and by the way, I did this when I got into credit repair. It's because I was a client first, and I ended up getting into the industry. But I mean, I had a really bad credit after the meltdown of 2008, 2009. And one of the things that helped me out a lot is I had a couple of good friends add me on as authorized users onto their credit cards. It helped. And I didn't buy them, but I know that's certainly a thing that takes place. No, as far as, just to go back to this, Arian, number one, are there any anti-abuse algorithms in place by FICO? It's not considered abuse. They don't know that you bought the trade line. Now, I'm not going to sit here and advocate for paying somebody for their trade line, but it happens all the time. I mean, it's a real business. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I know people that are in that business. Most of the time what happens is they buy an AI. I don't know why I keep saying AI. I'm talking because I'm talking about Credit Versio. They buy the authorized user account for a temporary for a short period of time. Usually, it's to get a qualification for a home. That's where I see it being used most of the time. Ideally, Aaron, you want to see if you got a family member or a friend that will add you on as an authorized user and just leave you there. Like my girlfriend, she's an authorized user on my Cap One, actually on two of my accounts, which really helped her a lot because they're old accounts now, and I don't carry balances on those cards. So if you got to buy one, you got to buy one. But I wouldn't do that for any other reason than maybe having to buy a home, and that's if you can't get somebody to add you on. Okay, Millennial Homegirl. All right. There you are. So hello. Any types to increase the mortgage score? All other FICO scores increase, but my FICO too. So Millennial Homegirl, one of the best ways to increase your mortgage score. So this is mortgage 2, 4, and 5. So these are the old, like 2-decade old my FICO scores that are mandated under FHFA, and they happen to be particularly sensitive to credit card utilization. So I've had people from FICO tell me this, John Oldtimer specifically, that really the best utilization rate is to be under 7%. The reason for that is a mortgage is a really big purchase. They want to make sure that you're not strapped in any way, that you're not having any kind of financial issues, that you're overextended. And one of the places, and this applies to everything, by the way. This is where the most sensitive part of your credit score lies. It's in your credit card usage. It's in your utilization. 2 parts. How many accounts do you have with balances open, and your balance respect to your limit. So you got a $10,000 altogether, an aggregate of $10,000 of available credit, and let's say you're using 5,000 of it, so you have a 50% utilization rate. Ideally, before you buy a home, Millennial, you wanna get that credit card debt paid off as much as you possibly can, and still have plenty of money for your down payment. So really, that's the big one. What are your utilization rates on your credit cards? Do you have high usage? Do you have a lot of cards with balances? If that's the case, if you get that taken care of, that's what's going to push up that FICO 2, 4, and 5. Okay. Aaron S., thank you for your answer. You are very welcome. Robert Sosa, welcome. Okay. All right. So we're coming up on 40 minutes or so. Now, I did talk a lot about Credit Versio and how it works. If you have any questions at all about your credit report, about your repair process, anything specific, feel free to ask it. We got about maybe 5 or 10 more minutes left. I'm happy to answer those questions. And in the meantime, one of the things that I love touching on is the idea of embracing a little bit of patience. And one of the things, I spent my first 7.5 years in credit repair enrolling people over the phone. I've literally enrolled about 3,500, 4,000 people. Just this personally. This isn't my sales team. This isn't my group of people that I had before I came to Credit Versio. This is just me personally. And one of the things that is always present is, hey, I need to buy something. I need to qualify for something. I need to get a home. I need to get a car. How fast can I get this done? Well, a couple things to keep in mind. Remember, number one, that one of the penalties of default is that it stays there for 7 years. Well, it seems very punitive. I mean, it's a little extreme. I mean, why 7 years? I don't agree that it should be on there that long because, I mean, if you think about it, back when these laws were written, I mean, people essentially worked at the same job their entire life. My dad, retired San Diego PD. My grandfather retired Navy. I mean, these are guys that did the same thing their entire lives. So there was a generation, multiple generations of people that came before us, and that's what they did. Now, the significance of that is that if you went into default, and given what really took place at the time, which is if you were going to be at the same job with relatively the same income, you didn't have a lot of upward mobility or lateral mobility, where you could make a job change or a career change or do something that was different. Well, those times are over. I mean, I've had like 4 careers. I'm 51 years old. I've had 4 or 5 careers, who knows how many jobs. And like a lot of people, you have some ups and you have some downs, depending on what's going on with the economy. God forbid you get an illness or, bad business arrangement or something like that. So I don't think the 7-year timeline is really all that applicable anymore, but that's what it is. That's where we are. Now, the great thing is we have the ability to dispute this stuff, challenge this stuff, and hopefully shave some years off the time it takes to go from maybe bad credit or not so great credit to good credit, maybe even excellent credit. And all of that still requires a modicum of patience. So keep in mind that when you're in the dispute process, this is a 2-part process. Part 1 is you got to try to delete as much stuff as you possibly can. Let Credit Versio guide you through the process. If you see glaring errors on your credit report, then write custom reasons. Attach whatever information that you have. It's not rocket science. It's actually pretty straightforward. If you don't have a reason, let Credit Versio help you out with it. And then, this is just as important, and this is one of the conversations that I have a couple times, at least a few times a week, on Facebook, on our YouTube channels, where people are like, hey, the repair's going great, but how come my scores are dropping? Well, I look at their credit report, and the first thing I see is they're doing bad stuff. They didn't go through their coaching program that's in Credit Versio. They have high credit card usage. I mean, I've seen some people get new collections. So I mean, you have to be able to take on good credit habits. So there's a portion, and this is not anybody's fault necessarily. Like, nobody pulled you and me aside when we were in high school and said, okay, listen, credit's really important stuff. Let me explain it to you. This is going to define a lot of your options in life. It's certainly going to impact your money, what you have available to finance, what you have available to as far as portable capacity, credit cards, the ability to borrow. So if mistakes are made and bad habits are continued, it can stymie you for a long, long time. Okay, let's see. Oh, Melino just responded. Okay, thank you, David. Does the overall utilization matter more than the individual cards? Yes, it does. It's an aggregate. I'm an AU on a great utilization card with a huge limit, but my personal card has a high utilization limit. Okay, so Millennial, it's 2 things. Number 1, it's credit utilization. It's an aggregate number, everything all together. Also, it's how many accounts do you have with open balances. That's high risk. So, case in point, like this lady I was just talking about that had 16 open accounts. She had 2, 3, or 4 of them that had like $60, $70 balances. And I told her, pay this stuff off. You start paying this stuff off. You got a lot of accounts with low balances. And I never talked to her. I did a video for her and did a walkthrough, like a virtual walkthrough for her. But I think when I see stuff like this happen, it's usually because people think, well, I got to keep balances on some of my cards. Let FICO and Vantage Score know that I'm using it. Not in this situation. You want to, like me, for example, I've got 4 or 5 credit cards. I only ever use one. I might use my Synchrony card for my Amazon Prime. Oops, looks like it's paused a little bit here. Uh-oh. Let me know if you can still see me. Oh, it looks like my internet went down. Okay, well, Robert Sosa, would it be easier to pull all my credit cards onto just one card so I can just pay one amount? How can I do that, and what card will help me? Okay. Well, let's see here. All right. Well, it looks like it was a Facebook thing. My apologies. I thought maybe we were paused there for a second. Okay. Robert, yeah, in fact, that's a great idea if you can do it. If you have a good enough credit, you know what I'm a fan of? I love these like 12-month, 18-month interest-free balance transfers. Now, you've got to have pretty good credit for it, and you've got to have the discipline to pay it off in that period of time. Pardon me. So, yeah, if you can get a 12-month, an 18-month, and consolidate all of your debt onto one card, That's a really great idea. More for just not paying all the interest. Really, I think this credit score is probably secondary. It's getting out from underneath, what, 15, 18, 20% interest? I mean, that's ridiculous. In fact, worst case scenario, let's just say you can't, qualify for one of these interest-free cards. Go down to your bank or your credit union and get a personal loan for, what are personal loans now? 4%, 6%? Shoot, it beats the heck out of having a credit card interest rate at 13 to 20% or whatever they are. I don't even know if they're as low as 13%. I know they're in the high teens. So yeah, absolutely. That's what I would suggest doing. Okay, millennial, this keeps my overall utilization low. Yeah, so that's a really important thing. As I said, the number of accounts with balances is probably going to play a role in that as well. Okay, we are coming up on 50 minutes and got a pretty good group still watching. So thank you very much for joining me today. And for anybody watching this on a replay, if you have questions, please post them. So every time somebody posts a question on this, even after I get off doing the live, I come back to it and I answer those questions. So Arian, Robert, Millennial, and let's see who else did we have here. Al Mustafa, Joseph, if you're still on, Prince Charles, if you're still on, thank you so much for joining me today and participating. I'll look forward to seeing you next Wednesday. Take care.